The chains rattled sharply as Kale's wrists were slammed into the scorching metal bindings, encircling the molten core chamber. The oppressive heat clawed at his skin, a brutal reminder of the iron beast that towered above him. Its colossal frame forged from blackened steel and glowing red veins of molten energy. Around him, a crowd of alien onlookers trembled, some in fear, others in reverence, as the final human sacrifice was secured for the ritual. The atmosphere crackled with a tension so thick it seemed to choke the very air. They think I'll shatter like the rest. Kale's mind seethed beneath the burning heat, defying the crushing despair. But I will melt their core. I will forge a blade sharp enough to slice the stars themselves. His voice was silent, but the fire within his eyes burned fiercely, a beacon of unyielding defiance. A deep, guttural voice echoed from the shadows. Prepare the sacrifice. Let the core consume him, as it has consumed all before. The alien overlord's words were cold, mechanical, stripped of mercy. Kale's jaw clenched. He refused to be a victim, refused to let this monstrous machine consume his spirit. His thoughts drifted, not to the searing metal or the choking heat, but to memories long buried yet vividly alive. The laughter of his children, the gentle smile of his wife, the blue skies of Earth before the invasion turned it into ash. Those memories were his shield, his reason to endure. As the molten core pulsed beneath him, a living furnace roaring with the power of a dying star, Kale's senses sharpened. The heat made the metal around him glow with a hellish light, shadows dancing across his sweat-streaked face. Every muscle in his body screamed, but his mind was a fortress. A faint whisper escaped his lips, barely audible over the cacophony of the molten chamber. I will not be broken. The alien guards tightened the chains, their cruel hands leaving scorch marks on Kale's skin. One of them leaned close, a twisted grin revealing jagged teeth. You are nothing but fuel for the core, human. Your defiance means nothing. Kale met the guard's gaze unflinchingly. You underestimate the strength of a man who has lost everything. He replied softly, his voice steady despite the agony. The crowd murmured, some in disbelief, others in awe. News of Kale's reputation had spread among the prisoners, a metallurgist and starship engineer of unparalleled skill, once responsible for innovations that had pushed humanity to the edge of the stars. Now reduced to a sacrifice, yet still burning with a spark no torture could extinguish. He recalled the day of his capture, how the alien fleet descended like a plague, shattering Earth's defenses. The screams, the destruction, the helplessness. He had tried to fight to save his family, but the overwhelming power rendered him powerless. Now bound in the iron grip of his captors, Kale's rage had transformed into a quiet, relentless determination. His mind raced through possibilities. The molten core was unstable, an energy source far beyond human technology. If he could find a way to disrupt its flow, to channel its energy, perhaps he could turn this execution into a rebellion. A weapon forged from their own heart of darkness. As the core's heat intensified, the chamber began to tremble. The crowd stepped back in fear, sensing the shift. Kale's breath came in ragged gasps, sweat boiling on his brow. His hands, though chained, twitched with the urge to reach out, to manipulate, to create. You will burn, the overlord hissed, stepping closer, eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction. And your death will feed the Empire's power. Kale's lips curled into a bitter smile. Then let my death be the spark that ignites your downfall. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the chamber. The molten core flickered, an unnatural shudder rippling through the iron behemoth. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Kale's heart pounded. This was the moment. The fire within him surged. His mind focused on the core's rhythm, the pulsing energy that fed the alien war machine. If he could amplify the instability, create a feedback loop, The chains binding him glowed red-hot, the metal threatening to give way. Kale's muscles strained against the bonds, not with futile force, but with calculated precision. The alien guards scrambled, their confidence replaced by alarm. "Seal the core, stop him," one shouted, but the core's tremors grew stronger. Kale's eyes burned with fierce clarity. "You thought this would be my end," he thought, "but it is only the beginning." His fingers brushed against the metal, feeling the vibrations, the flow of energy. With a sudden, explosive effort, the chains snapped, searing metal biting into his flesh as they gave way. Kale fell forward, landing on the glowing surface, but he was free. The crowd recoiled in shock, the Overlord's face twisted in rage. Kill him, but Kale was already moving, propelled by desperation and hope. He reached into the core chamber, placing his hand directly on the molten heart. The heat was unbearable, but his will was stronger. He closed his eyes, channeling every ounce of knowledge and strength. In that moment, Kale envisioned a blade, fiery, radiant, capable of cleaving the cosmos. His mind became a forge, the core's energy a hammer shaping destiny. Around him, the chamber shook violently. Flames erupted, metal groaned and twisted. The alien onlookers fled in terror, while Kale remained, a solitary figure against the inferno. As the molten core roared like a living beast, Kale whispered, "For Earth. For those I've lost, I will turn this hell into a star's edge." The outcome hung in the balance, an unknown fate teetering between death and defiance, destruction and salvation. The iron-skinned behemoth groaned, its molten heart teetering on the brink of collapse. And in the midst of the inferno, Kale stood unbroken, the last hope of a world swallowed by darkness. Kale's breath hitched as the chains clattered against the scorching metal once more. The alien priests' voices echoed through the chamber, chanting in a tongue that seemed to vibrate with ancient malice. Around him, the shadows of former comrades, faces once vivid with hope, were now mere ghosts. Forgotten fragments swallowed by the grinding gears of alien tyranny. The ritual was about to commence, and Kale was the latest pawn in a game far larger and darker than most could comprehend. Yet beneath the crushing weight of his captivity, a flicker of defiance kindled deep within him. His mind, razor-sharp despite the agony, searched for any weakness in the iron behemoth towering above. The overlords were creatures of terrifying power, massive, their skin like molten iron, impervious to human weapons and will. Their war machines, fueled by the sacrifices of men like Kale, had crushed every resistance, turning Earth into a quarry. But today, Kale noticed something no one else dared see. A subtle anomaly pulsed at the core of the alien war machine, a flicker of unusual heat patterns. A glitch in the energy flow that should have been perfect and unyielding. His eyes traced the glowing veins of molten energy coursing through the behemoth's frame. And beneath the overwhelming roar of the furnace, he caught a faint whisper. It was barely audible, a rebellious murmur woven into the chaos of captive voices. The voice spoke of hope, of a hidden vulnerability buried within the seemingly invincible armor. Kale's heart hammered, his mind swirling between despair and a spark of hope. Could this be the crack that shatters their empire? The question clawed at him relentlessly. The alien overlord's voice thundered again, cold and merciless. "Prepare the sacrifice, feed the core, let no weakness persist." His words sliced through the chamber, a decree that sealed the fate of hundreds. Kale's chains rattled as he shifted, his muscles screaming against the burning bindings. His eyes, bloodshot and fierce, met the cold gaze of the alien priests. "You think I am powerless," he whispered, voice hoarse but resolute. "You think I will become fuel for your war machines, a forgotten ember snuffed before it can ignite." One of the alien guards sneered, stepping close. "Your defiance is meaningless, human. Your fire will be extinguished." But Kale's mind raced faster than the heat that threatened to consume him. Memories surged, a life stolen piece by piece. The faces of his family, the laughter of his children, the warmth of Earth's blue skies before ash and ruin. This is why I fight, not for survival but for vengeance. His fingers twitched, restless and desperate to grasp any tool, any spark of resistance. The murmurs from the captive ranks grew louder, a low hum of shared desperation. Kale focused on the faint voice, the one that whispered secrets of the core's instability. The alien engineers had built a fortress of steel and fire, but even the strongest walls have cracks. His eyes locked on the core's pulsing heart. The heat patterns flickered in a rhythm that was almost unnatural, not perfect, not steady. An opening. The alien overlord's voice cut through his thoughts again. You will burn, human. Your death will fuel the Empire's endless war. Kale's lips curled into a bitter, defiant smile. Then let my death be the spark that burns your empire down. A sudden tremor shook the chamber. The molten core flickered violently, the iron behemoth groaning as if wounded. Gasps erupted from the alien audience. Kale's pulse quickened. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Seal the core, stop him, a guard shouted, panic threading through his voice. The chains binding Kale glowed red-hot, the metal threatening to snap. But this time, Kale's struggle was precise, controlled. He wasn't fighting to break free blindly. He was channeling the core's own energy against it. His fingers brushed the searing metal, feeling the vibrations, the flow of power. His mind, a forge of knowledge and desperation, raced to create a feedback loop, to destabilize the war machine's heart from within. Suddenly, with a sharp crack, the chains shattered. Seared skin screamed in protest, but freedom was his. Kale dropped forward onto the glowing surface, the molten heat licking at his flesh, but he did not falter. The crowd recoiled in shock, alien voices rising in alarm. The Overlord's face twisted with rage. Kill him, he bellowed. Kale's body moved with a purpose born from years of loss and rebellion. He extended his hand, pressing it directly against the core's molten heart. The heat was unbearable, an inferno that should have burned him to ash. But Kale's will was an unbreakable blade. He closed his eyes. Channeling every ounce of skill and knowledge, the secrets of metallurgy, the principles of energy, the art of forging weapons from the raw elements of destruction. In his mind, a blade took shape, not a physical sword, but a spark of revolution. A weapon of pure energy capable of cleaving the cosmos. The chamber shook violently as the core roared like a wounded beast. Flames erupted, metal groaned and twisted, and alien onlookers fled in terror. Kale stood alone amidst the chaos, a solitary figure blazing against the inferno. For Earth, he whispered fiercely, for those I've lost, I will turn this hell into a star's edge. Suddenly, a sharp voice broke through the turmoil. A rebel voice, faint but unmistakable, reached Kale's ears from the shadows. Kale, the core's instability. There's a blind spot beneath the energy matrix. Target it, Kale's eyes snapped open, heart pounding. He had not been alone in his defiance. Somewhere within the captive ranks, a spark of rebellion burned, a hidden ally risking everything to guide him. He pivoted, his hand tracing the core's surface, searching for the elusive weak point. The molten veins pulsed erratically there, heat flaring like a storm about to break. The alien overlord screamed in fury, launching a volley of energy blasts at Kale. The warrior moved with desperate agility, dodging the searing beams, each step a gamble between life and death. Kale's mind raced. If he could channel the core's energy through this blind spot, create a cascading overload, the war machine could collapse from within, taking the alien regime's power with it. Hold on, Kale, the faint voice whispered again. We're with you. With a roar that defied the inferno, Kale plunged his hand deeper into the molten core, focusing the energy through the weak point. His flesh blistered, screams of pain ripping from his throat, but he did not yield. The chamber shook with the force of impending destruction. The alien overlord's expression twisted from rage to terror as the core's energy began to spiral out of control. Kale's body trembled, muscles burning, but his spirit soared. The fire inside him was no longer a mere ember. It was a blazing star, a beacon of hope for the enslaved. As the war machine's heart faltered, the alien priests' voices faltered too, their chants breaking into frantic cries. The shadows of former comrades seemed to stir, their forgotten hopes rekindled by Kale's defiance. In the final breath before collapse, Kale whispered, "This is just the beginning." The molten core exploded in a cascade of light and fire, sending shockwaves through the chamber. The iron behemoth groaned, its molten veins rupturing, its mighty frame crumbling. Kale was thrown back, his body battered but unbroken. Around him, the alien overlords scrambled, their empire's foundations trembling. In that moment, Kale was no longer a sacrifice. He was a spark, an ember that would ignite a revolution. And somewhere deep within the shadows, the rebellious voice smiled. The war for humanity's freedom had only just begun. Chains rattled violently as Kale was dragged deeper into the molten chamber, the oppressive heat scorching his skin through the searing iron cuffs. His lungs burned with every ragged breath, but his mind raced faster than ever, refusing to succumb to the suffocating despair. The alien priests' guttural chants reverberated off the cavernous walls, their voices a sinister symphony, blending with the relentless roar of molten metal flowing like liquid fire beneath his feet. Kale's heart pounded fiercely, not from fear but from a fierce, desperate hope. This was the moment that had haunted his every waking thought since his capture. The unbearable choice lay before him: accept death as the countless before him had, or attempt the impossible, melt the core of the iron behemoth from within, turning the weapon of their tyranny into a crucible of rebellion. As his battered feet scraped against the glowing platform, Kale's eyes flicked over the monstrous machine towering above. Its skin, forged from black iron and pulsing veins of molten energy, seemed invulnerable, an eternal furnace feeding on sacrifice. But he knew better. His years as a metallurgist and engineer whispered secrets to him. Even the strongest metals crack. Even the fiercest fires burn unevenly. A sudden jolt sent a shockwave through his chains. Kale gritted his teeth as iron links bit into his wrists. "You'll break," a priest's voice sneered, low and venomous, "just like the rest. Your spirit will melt away in the core's embrace." Kale's gaze hardened. "I am no ember to be snuffed out," he thought fiercely. "I am the spark that will ignite the end of this nightmare." His hands trembled as he subtly flexed his fingers, searching blindly for the small, concealed tools he had hidden beneath the ragged remnants of his prison garb, scraps of metal and wire fashioned into makeshift instruments. The chains clanked as he shifted, the heat threatening to burn through his flesh. But he forced his mind to focus. Every detail of the core's composition, every pattern of heat flow, was etched into his memory from stolen moments of study while imprisoned. The alien priests, chanting, grew louder, their voices rising in a crescendo that seemed to shake the very foundation of the chamber. The molten metal rippled, as if the core itself responded to the ritual's call. Kale's breath hitched, sweat coursing down his temples, but his resolve only grew fiercer. He would not be consumed quietly. A sudden sharp clang rang out, a chain link snapped free. Kale's eyes flashed. "Now," he whispered to himself. With painstaking effort, he maneuvered the tiny shards of metal hidden beneath his sleeve, working to ignite a chemical reaction. His knowledge of metallurgy told him that a sudden, localized flare of heat could destabilize the core's delicate energy balance. His fingers scraped against the glowing veins, careful not to burn away entirely as he sparked the reaction. The behemoth shuddered violently, a deep groan emanating from its iron frame. Cracks thin as spiderwebs appeared along the surface of its molten skin. The captive crowd gasped, their collective hope trembling on the edge of resurgence and ruin. "Impossible," hissed one priest, his voice laced with fear and fury. "The core cannot be breached." Kale's lips curled into a grim smile beneath the sweat and grime. Nothing is invincible, he thought, especially not when forged by arrogance. Suddenly, the behemoth's response was swift and brutal. Its iron skin heated to unbearable levels, the molten veins flaring hotter than ever, triggering an automated defensive mechanism. Mechanical arms, embedded within the core's structure, snapped to life, whirring gears and claws emerging like living extension of the machine itself. "Defensive mecha activating," a harsh, metallic voice announced, echoing through the chamber like a death sentence. Kale's eyes widened, adrenaline surging as the mechanical limbs lunged toward him. The chains, now glowing red-hot, threatened to fuse his flesh to their unforgiving grasp. He twisted wildly, narrowly avoiding the snapping claws, his body aching with the effort. "You cannot escape," the alien overlord bellowed, stepping forward, eyes blazing with cruel satisfaction. "Your defiance only hastens your doom." Kale's breath was ragged, his skin blistering from the heat, but his spirit refused to yield. "If this is my death," he thought, "then I will die a weapon, not a victim." He reached deep into his mental arsenal, recalling the precise composition of the molten metal, an unstable alloy, energized by a volatile fusion reaction. If he could channel the core's energy through the fractures he had ignited, he might trigger a cascading meltdown from within. Sweat mingled with blood as Kale forced his hand against the molten surface, teeth clenched against the searing pain. The core's energy pulsed violently beneath his fingertips, threatening to incinerate him. Yet within the chaos, he found a rhythm, a fragile balance between destruction and creation. Around him, the alien priests screamed in alarm, their chants dissolving into frantic commands. The mechanical arms thrashed wildly, attempting to sever Kale's connection to the core, but his grip was unyielding. A voice whispered through the chaos, a faint, rebellious murmur from somewhere in the shadows. "Kale, the blind spot beneath the energy matrix. Target it now." Kale's eyes snapped open, heart hammering. He wasn't alone in this fight. Summoning every ounce of strength, he shifted his hand, directing the unstable energy toward the core's vulnerability. The molten veins flared with uncontrollable intensity. The chamber trembled violently, metal groaning as the war machine's heart began to fracture. "Stop him," the overlord roared, launching a barrage of energy blasts. Kale dodged with desperate agility, each movement fueled by pain and unwavering resolve. "Hold on," the voice urged again. "We fight with you." Kale's flesh blistered, agony ripping through his body as the core's energy surged beyond control. Yet his mind soared with the fire of rebellion, every heartbeat a hammer strike forging a new destiny. The molten core exploded in a cataclysm of light and flame, the iron behemoth groaning beneath the strain. The chamber shook violently as the war machine's structure began to collapse. Thrown backward, Kale crashed against the glowing floor, battered but alive. The alien priests fell silent, their empire's foundation cracking as the core's energy spiraled into chaos. As the inferno subsided, Kale's vision blurred but his spirit burned brighter than ever. He was no longer a sacrifice, he was the spark of revolution. For a fleeting moment, the distant voice whispered once more, "This is only the beginning," and amidst the ruins of tyranny, a new hope was born. Chains rattled fiercely as Kale's wrists strained against the blistering iron cuffs. The molten core beneath him pulsed with a relentless fury, waves of searing heat radiating outward like a living inferno. His skin sizzled where the metal bit into his flesh, each agonizing second a brutal reminder of the stakes. The chamber echoed with the alien priest's guttural chants, their voices dripping with cold malice, weaving a grim soundtrack to the ritual, yet within the furnace of agony. Kale's mind burned brighter, torn between the instinct to flee a fiery death and the burning resolve to ignite a rebellion. His thoughts churned violently: push forward and die here, or retreat and doom humanity to endless chains. The crushing weight of despair threatened to drown him, but memories surged like tidal waves. The laughter of his children, the warmth of his wife's embrace, the azure skies of Earth, all stolen from him by this merciless invasion. They suffered, they sacrificed. I cannot let their pain be in vain. These memories were the crucible forging his will, a blazing core that would not yield. Kale's breath came in ragged gasps, sweat mingling with blood as he fought to steady his trembling hands. The molten metal beneath was a living beast, its energy weaving unpredictable patterns. His fingers twitched involuntarily, aching to reach out, to grasp, to command the inferno itself. Yet the chains held him, their red-hot links threatening to fuse to his skin. He closed his eyes, willing his pain to dull, focusing on the unstable energy flow beneath. A low, mechanical hiss cut through the chamber as the alien overlords observed silently, their iron skin gleaming ominously in the glow. Their eyes, devoid of empathy, flickered with cold calculation. Kale could almost hear their thoughts: this one will break like the rest. But Kale's spirit blazed defiantly. You think I'll shatter, he whispered to himself, voice raw but fierce. But I will melt their core. I will forge a blade sharp enough to slice the stars themselves. The words were a promise, a vow whispered not to the aliens but to his own soul. Suddenly, a violent tremor coursed through the chamber. The molten core pulsed erratically, the iron behemoth groaning as if wounded. Kale's eyes snapped open, heart pounding like a war drum. The moment had come. He shifted subtly, feeling the chains glow hotter, threatening to burn him alive. The alien priest's chants swelled, their voices laced with desperation, an instinctive reaction to the instability Kale had triggered. Mechanical arms emerged from the behemoth's frame, clawing towards him with violent precision. Break him, the overlord snarled, stepping forward, eyes blazing with cruel delight. Kale's mind raced. The chains were burning into his flesh, the heat unbearable, yet retreat was impossible. His fingers curled, searching for the faintest spark of control over the molten energy coursing beneath. Through years of study and desperation, he had learned to read the core's rhythm, to manipulate energy flows with meticulous precision. With a guttural cry, Kale summoned every ounce of willpower. His hand shot out, trembling but determined, and pressed directly against the molten heart. The flames licked at his skin, searing through muscle and bone, but he did not flinch. Instead, he reached deeper, channeling the volatile energy, bending it to his purpose. A voice echoed faintly from the shadows, barely audible over the roar. Kale, the blind spot beneath the energy matrix, target it now. It was a rebel's voice, a whisper of hope piercing the inferno. Kale's eyes flashed open, locking onto the subtle fluctuation in the core's energy veins, a flicker of vulnerability. His mind sharpened, calculating angles and energy dispersal. The chains rattled violently as he wrenched his body, the iron cuffs glowing brighter, threatening to fuse permanently. Hold on, Kale, the voice urged again, steady and resolute. We fight with you. Pain exploded through his arm as he thrust his hand deeper into the molten core. Focusing the energy through the weak point, the chamber trembled violently, metal groaned and cracked. The alien overlord screamed in fury, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts, But Kale twisted and dodged, fueled by a raw, unyielding determination. Sweat and blood ran down his face, his every nerve alight with agony and resolve. The molten energy swirled around his hand, coalescing, twisting, shaping under his command. His vision blurred, but in his mind's eye, a blade was forming, radiant, pulsating with cosmic light. A weapon forged from the very heart of destruction. "This is for Earth," Kale whispered fiercely, "for my family, for freedom." The alien behemoth convulsed, its iron skin splintering along the molten veins. Cracks spiderwebbed across its surface, glowing with searing heat. The chamber shook as the core's energy spiraled out of control. Kale gritted his teeth, pain slicing through him like 1,000 knives. But he held firm, the blade of molten energy shimmering now in his grasp, a living weapon of rebellion, capable of cleaving stars. "Impossible," the Overlord hissed, eyes wide with terror. "You cannot wield the core's power." Kale's lips curled into a grim smile. "I am no victim," he said through clenched teeth. "I am the weapon you never saw coming." With a final explosive surge, Kale lifted the radiant blade. The iron behemoth shuddered violently, fissures widening, molten metal erupting like volcanic fury. The Overlord's furious scream was drowned out by the roar of rebellion. "Freedom begins now," Kale declared, his voice booming over the chaos. With a mighty swing, the blade sliced through the iron skin, sparks flying as the cosmic energy carved a path of destruction. The war machine fractured irreparably, its molten veins rupturing and spilling fire. The alien onlookers scattered, terror etched on their faces. The Overlord stumbled back, disbelief turning to rage. "No, this cannot be." But Kale stood tall amidst the flames, the molten blade glowing fiercely in his hand, a beacon of hope born from fire and sacrifice. His body trembled, seared and battered, yet his spirit soared. In that heart-stopping moment, the boundary between life and death blurred. The inferno that should have consumed him, instead crowned him the harbinger of revolution. Around him, whispers of rebellion grew louder, a tide rising from the shadows. The imprisoned, once broken and forgotten, now found renewed courage in Kale's defiance. He glanced toward the hidden voice once more, nodding silently in gratitude. "Together," he thought, "we will burn away the darkness." The molten core's energy surged one last time, and then the iron beast collapsed. Kale staggered forward, gripping the cosmic blade, his eyes blazing with unyielding fire. The war for humanity's soul had reached its crucible, and from the molten depths, a new dawn was forged. Kale's lungs screamed for air, his body trembling beneath the shackles as the molten core thrummed like a wounded heart. Beneath his feet, the iron behemoth loomed above, its massive frame pulsing with veins of searing energy that seemed to ripple through the very fabric of reality. Around him, the alien priests scrambled frantically, their guttural chants broken by cries of alarm and rage. The chamber trembled violently, sparks and molten fragments flying through the air as Kale gripped the forged blade, a brilliant, searing weapon born from the very core of the monstrous machine. "I never thought I'd see this day," Kale muttered between ragged breaths, the heat blistering his skin beneath the burning chains. His eyes, bloodshot but blazing with fierce determination, locked onto the alien overlord who now stood aghast. His expression twisted by fury and disbelief. "You thought your empire was eternal, your power absolute. But you forgot one thing: humanity's spirit is never so easily broken." The alien overlord's voice was a venomous hiss, trembling with impotent rage. "You are but a spark, human. I am the inferno that will consume you." Kale smiled grimly, pain and exhaustion etched deep into every line of his face. Yet his voice held a steel edge that cut through the chaos. "Then let this spark become a wildfire." With an explosive roar, Kale drove the forged blade into the behemoth's core, the celestial energy of the weapon slicing through the alien armor like a cosmic comet cleaving the night sky. The massive machine shuddered violently, molten metal cracking and fissuring, the once invincible armor splintering beneath the relentless force. The core itself, the beating heart of the alien war engine, fractured and began to collapse inward, unleashing a torrent of raw power that rippled outwards in shockwaves. The captive humans, shackled and broken but not defeated, watched in stunned silence before a cry of hope erupted among them. Kale has done it. The word spread like wildfire, igniting a rebellion that surged through the ranks of prisoners. They rose, unshackling themselves, eyes alight with newfound courage. "Now is our time," one whispered fiercely, voice trembling with the weight of years of oppression. "The monster's heart is broken. We fight." Kale, though seared and trembling, felt a surge of strength from their uprising. Every agonizing step he had taken, every sacrifice made, every moment of pain and doubt now converged into this singular act of defiance. His heart pounded with a mixture of relief and sorrow, relief for the victory forged in fire, sorrow for the countless lost before him. As the alien priests scrambled to regain control, their chants faltered, their authority crumbling like the twisted metal around them. The overlord screamed commands, but his voice was drowned out by the roar of rebellion. Kale's breath came in ragged gasps as he stood, the forged blade glowing brightly in his hand, a beacon of human ingenuity and unyielding will. He scanned the faces of the freed captives, men and women scarred by years of torment, yet burning with hope for the first time in decades. "We fight not just for survival," Kale declared, voice hoarse but resolute. "We fight for freedom, for our families, for our home. The stars belong to humanity, and today we reclaim our destiny." A young woman stepped forward, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Kale, you saved us. You saved all of us." He shook his head slowly, the weight of leadership heavy upon him. "No, we saved ourselves. I was just the spark. Now the flame must burn brighter." The chamber around them groaned, as the war machine's core continued to rupture. The alien priests, desperate attempts to stabilize the core grew frantic and futile. The iron behemoth, once a symbol of invincibility, buckled under the strain, its molten veins bursting and spilling molten lifeblood like a dying star. Kale's mind drifted briefly to the sacrifices that had paved this path, friends who had fallen, families torn apart, dreams crushed beneath alien boots. The pain was a familiar companion, but so was the unbreakable will to fight. He lowered the forged blade, its light casting long shadows on the scorched floor. "This is more than a battle," he whispered to himself. "It's a promise that no matter how dark the night, the dawn will come." Around him, the freed humans rallied, their voices rising in unison, a chorus of defiance and hope that echoed through the ruins of tyranny. The alien overlord, defeated and desperate, glared at Kale with a twisted sneer. "You may have broken the core," he spat, "but you have not broken the empire. Others will rise." Kale met his gaze unflinchingly. "Empires built on fear always fall to courage, and we are far from finished." As the behemoth collapsed into molten ruin, Kale's body sagged with exhaustion, every scar and blister a testament to the cost of rebellion. But his spirit soared, a beacon of human resilience and intellect, forged in the crucible of pain and sacrifice. The chamber's walls trembled one last time before falling silent, the oppressive heat fading into the cool embrace of dawn. Kale's eyes drifted closed briefly, memories of Earth's blue skies and the laughter of his children flooding his mind. A faint smile touched his lips. "Freedom," he breathed, "is worth every sacrifice." As the first rays of light pierced the darkness, the captive humans gathered around Kale. their savior and symbol of hope. Together, they stepped forward into an uncertain future, a future reclaimed by courage, intellect, and unbreakable will. The alien empire's grip had been shattered. Humanity's destiny among the stars was theirs once more. And from the molten ashes of tyranny, a new dawn rose bright, fierce, and unyielding.